Hello everyone, it's me, Greg. Just wanted to go over a hack idea that I had for my RV trailer that I'm going to put on here. And as any of you have a trailer like this understand, one of the biggest problems that you have when dealing with a bedroom like this, where you have the lift up bed and you store everything underneath the bed, the problem is, of course, storage. And so you have the cabinets back here, you've got the cabinets up top, you've got the cabinets on the side for clean clothes. But one of the biggest problems we always had was trying to find a place to put the dirty clothes. So here's your options. First option you have is you can try to dump them outside or take them out to the living area. Or the other option you have is you put your hamper down under the bed and you come over here and you have to lift up the bed, and you have your hamper in here, of course, down in the bed. And I'll do that. And you have the hamper in here and you can store your dirty clothes in here, but the problem is when you do that, every time you want to put your dirty clothes away, you've got to put the bed up and down. And the biggest problem with that is that my wife has a hard time putting the bed up because it's heavy. If you put a mattress cover like we have on ours and you put sheets and pillows and everything else, it gets pretty heavy. It's hard to lift. And then the other problem that you have is if she's in bed and I want to put my dirty clothes away, I can't do that because she's laying on the bed. I can't lift the bed up to do it. So I had an idea for a hack. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a laundry door in the side where I can slide the laundry chute out. I can put my dirty clothes into the laundry chute and push it back up under the bed without having to lift the bed up. So I'm going to create the door in the side of the pedestal, and anyway, that's what I'm going to show you today. Alright, so if we look at the pedestal of the bed, you can see that the pedestal itself is framed out of 1x2s, and it's got this plywood sheathing. This is just like an 1/8 inch tempered hardboard plywood that goes on the top here. It's very, very thin, but what we don't want to do when we cut the door is affect the structural integrity of the pedestal, because we certainly don't want the pedestal to start to collapse or to fold in on itself. So I don't want to cut any of these 1x2s, and I don't want to cut all of the plywood because the plywood serves as a shear to stop the thing from collapsing either way. If you know anything about framing, you understand what a shear wall is. So I don't want to cut everything else. What I decided I could do is just cut this section here, just the plywood itself. Don't cut the 1x2s, don't cut the bottom plate, don't cut the corners, nothing like that. And then I'll use that piece of wood to actually help build the door. So I'm going to actually I'm going to drill some holes in the corner, then I'm going to get a jigsaw and I'm going to cut this just at the 1x2s. That way we'll still have some of the plywood up here, we still have the plywood here, and it'll keep the structural integrity of the bed pedestal so that we don't make a horrible mistake. So, alright, so the first thing I'm going to do in order to cut this, I want to get a nice clean cut around here because this is going to be a finished edge and I'm going to use this piece of plywood again. So what I'm going to do to start out with, I'm going to actually just drill some holes up in all of the corners where I'm going to, and the fourth one. Okay, so that's pretty clean. I didn't destroy the plywood, I didn't destroy the 1x2, nothing else. Then I'm going to use my jigsaw and I'm actually going to cut that piece out. Okay, so I've got my jigsaw. I'm using a very fine scroll saw blade, which you can probably see if I look at it. This is an old jigsaw, but you can see how fine that scroll saw blade is. I don't want a big wide saw curve. I don't want to do damage to this. So what I'm going to do is I've marked the lines. I'm going to go ahead and run my jigsaw into the hole that I just drilled. And I'll do that on all four sides, and I'll take this panel off. Okay, now you can see I've drilled all the way through. I've created the hole, but I've left these 2x2s in place so that I don't affect the integrity of the pedestal itself for the bed. So this is the piece of plywood that I cut off. I'm going to actually reuse this. I'm going to use this for my door that I make to put over this. So anyway, that's how you do the first part, and Now I'm going to go ahead and start making the door. I did think of one more thing I want to do before I start building the door. I realize that when my wife reaches her hand in here to put clothes or to pull the laundry basket out, that these edges I don't want to have splinters or shards on these edges. So I'm going to go ahead and take a sander. This is a medium grit paper. All I'm really trying to do is smooth this off just to make sure there aren't any splinters that she's going to catch her hand on. Okay, I just finished cleaning up the mess from cutting this out, and I know what a lot of you are going to ask me. You're going to say, why don't you just leave this opening here? Because when you put the bed down, once you drop this bed down back onto the pedestal, it's not really going to be seen. It doesn't really look bad. Why not just leave it like it is? Here's the reason. The RV, all trailer RVs are climate controlled. So you've got a heater that'll kick on at night, especially if you're in the mountains. You have an AC that'll run in the summer. The problem is under the pedestal bed, it's not climate controlled. And as a matter of fact, most of them, this one included, have openings into the back of the pedestal storage from the sides. So since this isn't climate controlled, I really don't want to try to have to heat and cool this area in here. So I want to put a door on here just to help hold the heat in and keep the cold out. And so that's the... Okay. So now the pedestal bed is back down. Here's my hole that I cut in. The final test is, does the laundry hamper fit through the hole that I cut? So this is the one that she's chosen to use. You can see it's a nice little laundry basket, and it slides easily in and out. Well, not easily, but it does slide in. What in an RV is easy? It does slide in and out. So that's obviously going to work. Everything should be good to go. Now I just need to go ahead and finish the door and mount it. Okay, now I'm back in the wood shop. It's time to look at building the doors to cover the opening. So what I'm going to use these semi-concealed hinges. You can see what they look like. This part here is going to hook to the inside of the door. This part here is going to open, and then you can see it'll close. It'll snap closed. So what I need to make a note of, though, is that when I put the door on here, when I actually mount that on there like that, when it goes on the door, it needs about a ½ inch on either side for the door to fit over the opening. So my door size itself is exactly 18 inches tall by 15 1/4 wide. So I need to make the door 19 inches tall by 16 1/4, so I have that ½ inch on either side when the door closes. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start cutting these. Again, I'm going to oversize the stiles and the rails on this door by exactly 1 inch so that it fits perfectly over the opening with the latches. All right, so right there is the layout of my door. You can see how it's going to lay out. And I know a lot of perfectionists and professional woodworkers are going to look at me and go, you can't just glue that. You've got to square it up and use a biscuit joint or something of the sort. I'm not going to do that because I don't have a biscuit joiner, and I'm not so concerned about the door being perfectly square. I've just checked it. I measured it corner to corner. Right there is about as close to perfectly square as you can possibly get. So I'm simply going to glue it as is with some clamps. And but before I do that, I think I want to put some decorative edges on it, because I do want to go ahead and I've got a router. I'm going to router a nice edge on this so that it looks a little bit more like a cabinet. And then I'm going to router a notch on the back where I'm going to be able to slip my other piece of plywood in as the panel on the door itself. you can see so far I've routed a very decorative edge along there, and you can kind of get an idea now of what this is going to look like when I get it all put together. So that's laid out. Now the only thing I need to do now is just router a notch on the backside where I can put my panel inside there. So I'm going to want to make a notch that is as deep as the thickness of that piece of plywood that I cut out of the camper. I'm done routing my stiles and rails for my door, and you can see I've put a decorative edge on the outside of each of these that'll just make it look a little nicer. And then on the inside edge I have notched out a little area for the panel to go inside there. So the next thing for me to do is to go ahead and square these up, glue them and clamp them, and then we wait. Okay, so now we have glued our frame for our door. And I know you perfectionists are looking at that going, hey, that's probably not square. Actually, it's perfectly square, and I'll show you an old framer's trick if you'd like to know. If you'll just take a tape measure, and you'll measure from corner down to corner here, and then measure from corner here over to corner here. If they happen to be the same, diagonal, these two measurements, then you are right on. I just measured it. It was right at 25 and 15/16 each way. So if it measures the same corner to corner, then it is perfectly square. So there you go. Nice little trick that I learned my years working as a framer. Okay, so our frame is dry. We let it dry overnight and pulled the clamps off. So this is what our door looks like. And you can see right there is the decorative edge that we put on it just to give it a little design. And then on the back side, you can see we have created a notch into which we'll put that panel that we cut out. So I need to take these off. I'm going to go ahead, these stickers, I'm going to go ahead and stain it, sand it a little bit, touch it, stain it. I'll just use a red oak, which will be fine. Probably won't match exactly, but I don't think anybody will really see it. So anyway, we'll do that, and we'll be ready to put it on. Okay, so the door is basically finished. I went ahead and stained it, as you can see, and I put this panel back on. This is that piece of plywood that we cut off of the pedestal there. So I want to go ahead and reuse that. It's a little bit ugly on the back, so I went ahead and restained it there, and I sealed it. The color's not perfect. This is a red oak. Depending on how picky you are, I don't think anybody's really going to see it, so I'm not too concerned. So the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put a little handle piece so that when my wife opens it, it'll have a door handle, a little door pull to open the door. And then I'm going to go ahead and mount it, and I'll be done. Okay, so there you have it. I went ahead and attached our door. You can see it opens like this under the pedestal. I used these just pretty common cabinetry hinges, and then I attached just a little handle so my wife can do this to get the door open and closed. So let's give it a try. Put the bed down. So here's our laundry basket that she wants to use. So we simply open our door like this. We put our laundry inside of it. We shove it up in there. We close the door, and our project is done. So anyway, feel free to send me a message if you have any questions. If not, happy RVing.